Okay, now that you have your crate unwrapped and packed, is ready to create your templates, to create your textures. So what we're going to want to do is go into our Unwrap UVW, and we're going to open up the editor, and we'll see our nice packed. So what we're going to do is go up here to go to Tools and go to Render UV Template. And then to start off, let's go in here and we're going to change this area where it says fill right in here. It'll default to none. We want to change it to solid. We want to get a solid color. And right now I don't want any of these edges on it. I just want a solid color. Okay. And I'm going to go render UV template, and it's going to render us a template. Now, as you can see, we're having an issue with these holes that are in here, that they're not coming out correctly. This happens sometimes when you have something that's got complex n-gons, which this does. A kind of workaround on that is if you come down, and I'm going to just cut my UV off of that for right now. And what I want to do is to come into this edit poly. I'm going to right click, go down here and convert it to an editable mesh. So from a poly to a mesh. Now when you do that, you won't see any difference, because really an editable mesh is 3D Studio's original file format. So before an editable poly, they had a thing called an editable mesh, which went back way back to in the early days before Max was called Max. It was called 3D Studio, and it was the original file format. It doesn't have as many options as an editable poly, but I have noticed that if you convert it back to that, then it eliminates some of those issues, and it won't change the geometry in any way. So let's just paste our UV Unwrap back on it here, and now I can go back in here. And so now when I go to my render UV template and go to solid and render it, it usually fixes that issue where your holes will show up. Okay, it's not a big thing, but it's just a little workaround. So what you can do is go ahead and render your templates out, then you can convert it back to an editable poly. It really doesn't matter when we take it into the game engine, whether it's an editable poly or an edit mesh. It won't make any difference. Okay, so this is basic color. It's easy. That's nice. All right, but we do need to check one thing, okay? Because by default, when we're kicking out this, it's rendering it two-sided, okay? You'll see right here it says force two-sided. Well, that could be an issue because it could mean that our bitmaps are going to be backwards. So what you want to do is turn this force two-sided off. Now hit render template. And you can see sometimes you'll be missing things. You'll see this piece is missing, this piece is missing. That's because these are flipped backwards. They're facing the wrong way, and that could really cause you some issues when you're doing your normal maps. So we want to fix that, and it's an easy fix. All we have to do is to come down here and pick the piece. Okay, and then right here we can just tell it to flip it. Doesn't matter if I flip it vertical, horizontal, and this one needed to be flipped also. Okay, so I've taken these two and flipped those. So now when I render my UV template, you'll see they're facing all the same way. So that's one of the things you want to double check, because I see people not checking this, and then they're having all kinds of weird issues showing up with their normals, and that's why. It's because their maps was flipped backwards. Okay, so once we have this, I just left it at 1024, but I want to kick out. We're going to be using 2048s. So we want to change this to 2048. And then render our template. And then we want to save this out. Okay, let's save this into my render output. I'm sorry, not render output, but my Scene Assets Images folder. And this is going to be my crate _ solid. Now you can do it whatever color you want. I mean, I've got this initially as gray, but it could be any color, anything that's easy to select. Okay. On our format, what we want to do is PNG. Okay. And then you want to click your setup. And what we want is a 24-bit, and we want an alpha channel with it. Okay. 24-bit alpha channel. Okay. And we can save that. All right. Now we want a wireframe view of this. So we're going to change this solid to none. And then all I want is the visible edges. I don't need the seam edges. So where it's green, I don't really need to see that. I just want visible edges. So I render that, and it's going to give me a wireframe. Now this will look a little broken up, and that's just because I'm zoomed in on it. And so we're going to save this out. That's the same. Okay. So just going to click on this where I wrote create solid, and I'm just going to change this to wire. Now you can name these whatever you want. I'm just naming it something that makes sense to me. And this is PNGs also, and I want the same setting, 24-bit alpha channel. And hit save. Okay, then that's the templates that I need to be kicked out of Max to start building my texture map. Okay, so let's go over to Photoshop. Okay, and then I can just get these two files, and then I just open them up in Photoshop. And then I want to put them on top of each other. Now, there's a couple ways you could do this. One way is just to kind of pull this tab off so that I go to my other tab, and then I can grab this icon and drag it. If I hold down the Shift key, it'll go right into place. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it, in fact, let me just delete that one, is you can go right here and you can go right click and you can go duplicate the layer, and then you can tell it where you want it to go. So I'm going to go onto the solid and then click OK, and then it'll put it over there and it'll be in perfect position. Okay, so there's our template. Now we want to go ahead and make a layer in here, and we want to fill it with black, and that'll be at the bottom. Okay, so this is just our base. Okay, and we'll just call this solid, and this one wire. You want to name your things because we're going to be building up things in here, so you want to keep it organized. Okay, so this is a basic setup, and we're ready to start doing the next part. All right, so the next thing we need to do is to go find some wood, because we're going to start with our base color, which is the wood. All right, so we're going to go over to Google, and we're just going to type in wood boards texture. And we're going to go to images, and then up here under tools, we want to go to size, and we only want to look at large ones. So now, a big mistake that people make when they're doing wood is they'll go in and just get a big old patch of wood, like something like this. And the scale of that is so far off that it's not going to be feasible for us to use that. Okay, so we don't want something like that. That's the reason I typed in wood boards, because usually when you'll find the wood boards, then they're aligned smaller. Okay, so, and what we're looking for is just we're going to end up aging our wood. Okay, so we're going to do it so it's all aged, but we don't want to get aged wood to start with. We want wood that's unaged, and then we're going to age it. Okay, we can also do, another thing is we could do a search for wood planks. is another thing that you can search for too. Okay, just make sure you're always getting the large ones. Okay, so we want something kind of generic. Okay, see, like this one, this is a nice looking piece of wood. Okay, but it's going to be limiting for us because I want to control the aging to it. So I don't want something that's been aged. What I really want something is more like this. Okay, so this, we can start with this, and then I'm just gonna, I always do this because it says down here that this is 2940, but I see a lot of times they're not. So I go open it in a new tab, and then you can actually see how big it is, and this is a good quality size wood. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this, and then we'll go over into Photoshop, and then we're just going to paste it, and we'll see it's a nice quality. Okay, nice big, and it's way too big. Okay, the proportions of this is way too big, so we're going to scale it down. But before we do that, I want to right click on it over here, and I want to convert it to a smart object, which means that as I make it down smaller, it'll still keep the quality to it. So Control T, and then I'm going to drag it in. And what I'm doing here is trying to get what I think is about the correct proportions of what a piece of wood would be, which that's pretty close right there. It doesn't have to be perfect. So somewhere around there is about right. Okay, so then I'm just going to take it down here, and I'm going to put it in the bottom right hand corner. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I need to fill it with the rest of this, and this is where AI is going to come in for us. Okay, so I'm going to come in and get my magic wand, and then I'm just going to select the background. Now you need to make sure that you don't have this to sample all layers up here, because if you do, then it's going to, it samples all these layers, and I don't want that. I just want the layer I have selected, and so it's going to select everything that is not the wood. Okay. Okay, then we can use this generative fill, and then you don't need to type anything in, you just hit generate. Okay, and so now I have a whole wall of wood. Okay, and then it's going to give you different variations over here. You can find which one you like. Okay, I think I kind of like this one with different variations. Okay, all right, but now let's generate another one. Okay, we're going to try another one. I'm just going to go ahead and put these two, and I'm going to group them in a folder there. All right, and then let's go get another piece of wood. Okay, so I brought in another piece of wood. Okay, and one of the things that we have to deal with sometimes is some of these swatches will have lighting information in it. So you'll see that this is darker up here and it's lighter in here. Now I can go ahead and generate from this. But it's going to probably give me some irregular lighting scenarios in there. Yeah, see how you've got this rippling of the lighting in there. So I'm going to show you a little trick where you can deal with that. So I'm just going to put this into its own file here. All right, and you can really see it here. You can see the lighting information in here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make a new layer of this. And I'm going to go up here to filter, and I'm going to go to other, and I'm going to do high pass. Now high pass, what this is doing is taking out information out of this. Okay, so far over here to the right, If you go too far to the left, then it really, it kills this. So what you want to do is be at the right, and you can still see the lighting information. And then I'm going to start pulling this to the left. And as I do, at a certain point, now the lighting information is kind of equalizing out of here, so that it seems like it's the same all the way across. Now, I've lost a lot of detail, but that's okay at this point. I'm just trying to get the light out of there. So click OK on that. So now it seems pretty even across here. So now what I can do is take this original one and lay it back on top of it and change its blending mode to color. So all it's going to be doing is adding color back into this. Now I'm still going to need to punch the color, but this gets us back to a point that I can deal with it. Okay, so now I'm going to select the whole thing, Control A, and then I'm going to copy it merged. Okay, edit, copy, merged, and then paste back on top. And now I want to adjust this. So I'm going to go in and add an adjustment layer to this. Initially, what I'm going to do is levels. And then I'm going to click this button so it only adjusts what's below it. And then this is my dark, and I can darken this up. And then I can get it pretty much back to where it was. Now, one of the things that happens when you do this is it gets kind of saturated. Okay, so what I normally want to do is go in here and add a hue and saturation. Click this so that it's only affecting this layer, and just pull some of the saturation down, and now it doesn't look as so electric. Okay, so now I'm going to select the whole thing. I'm going to copy it, merged. Okay, by the way, that's Control Shift C, whereas Control C is copy, Control Shift C is copy all layers, which is the same thing as going up here, copy, merged. And so now we'll go back over here, and I'm going to paste it, and then I'm going to bring this down in here. Now the scale of this is a little off, and what I've noticed is if I try to come in here and I scale it too much down, it does some funky things sometimes with your AI when I'm doing it. So what I do is in a two-step process. So I come in here now and will select, and it looks like I don't have it all the way to the edge. There we go. I only want it to select and go up. So I can do my generative fill, generate. I'm going to pause this for a second while it's doing this. Okay, so now it's generated that, and that wood looks pretty good. We got versions up here. I kind of like that one better. I kind of like that one best. Okay, I'm going to go with that one. So then what I'm going to do is, I always try to leave myself out some ways to go backwards. So I'm going to pick both of these. I'm going to put them in a group. Then I'm going to hold down the Alt key and drag the group up to make a copy of it. And then I'm going to merge that group. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and convert that to a smart object. And now I'm going to do a second version of this because these planks are too big. So I'm going to pull them back down where I think I'm getting back into where I think the scale is better. I'm going to go with that. And so then I'm going to do it one more time. Generate. Okay, and I'll pick which one I like. I think maybe that one. I don't like that one. That's good. I think I like this one. All right, I'll go with that. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in a group. Okay, so now I've got that. I'm going to make a copy of that, and I'm going to merge that one, and then I'm going to make another copy of it, and this one I'm going to rotate. So I'm going to go Control T, and I want to rotate it 90 degrees. So the boards are going this way. So I have one version going this way and one version going that way. Okay. And that's because some of my boards run this way and some of my boards run that way. All right, so I'm going to do these boards first. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a copy of this. And now what I want to do is I want to select the area around those boards. And I'm holding the Alt key. I need to deselect there. So I'm just getting the area around those boards. Okay, and I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to do a layer mask on it, and it'll be in, now that wood is going here, and I need to drop my wireframe at the top and turn it on, then I'll be able to see what my wood's doing. Now, when you're doing this, we're going to have these areas where we see the seams of where that original plank was, and here's how you get rid of the seam. You come over here and you're going to get your spot healing brush. And then you only want it pretty much, use your bracket so it's only just a little bit bigger than that. And you can see that line is in there. So what I'm going to do is I hold down the Shift key, make sure you're on your wood layer, and I just drag across it. And then it's going to fill that in. Now, if I go over here and need to do another one, which may be right there and maybe right there, I need to right click first, which stops the first action. Now I can go and do it again. If you don't, when you come in here, it'll jump from one side to the other. So you just right click, and then I'm going to do it again. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, I don't like that line right there. And this one right here. So just right click, Shift, drag, right click, Shift, drag, right click, Shift, drag. And now that wood looks pretty good there. Okay. So now we're going to see though, for this wood here, it's got to run, well, I've got to use this other one, this one that's running horizontal. So I always make a copy so I can always go back. Okay. And then initially what I can do is go to this icon right here and I can click on it. And it's going to select that area. Then when I go with this and I add it, it'll, then all I have to do is do Control I and it will invert that. And so now this wood's just going over here. Now, another thing that you can do, which sometimes I do, go back to this one, is maybe I don't like the placement of this wood in here. Okay, so if I go back to my Move tool and I hit this unlock right here, now you need to make sure you're picking the texture and not the mask, and then you can slide this through there. So you can slide this around and say, well, I kind of like this kind of knots and I like this better. Okay. And so then you want to lock it back and then you can go in and do your repair on this. Okay. Where I could take those parts out. So I can say, okay, I want to take this out. Okay. Right click. I want to take that little part right there out. Right click. Okay. I'm going to go with a smaller. Okay, my bracket tools is what makes this bigger and smaller for your brush. Go there, right click, and maybe there. Okay, then that looks pretty good. If I don't like that scar, I can take that out. Okay. Okay, right click, I'm going to take that one out. Right click, take that one out. Right click, I want to take this one out. Okay, I don't need to take that out because that's a space in between those. There's a little bit right there, but I'm just, yeah, maybe I'll take that out. Okay, do that, right click, and okay. So you can slide this stuff around to get it positioned in there. Then I can do the same thing for this. If I don't like kind of how this is lining up, I can unlock it. Get to your move tool, be sure you're picking the wood, and then I can move this around to get it in there the way I like it. And just be sure that you lock it back down when you get finished. So I'm going to leave it right there. Okay, so now these boards, this is running correctly. This wood grain would run here. So I just need to go in and do a little bit bigger brush. Take that out, right click. Take that out, right click. Take that out, right click. Take that out. Okay. Now what I used to do, which you can do, is I used to just take the whole sheet. So I would go up and take the whole sheet, and then I just remove everything out of the sheet one time, and then I didn't have to worry about it. But that's one way you can do it. Or you can just, that takes a certain amount of time because you're removing things that you may not need to remove. Okay. And I get into a rhythm where I'll move my mouse down and then right click and then move up. That way that little thing that's coming up won't be on top of what you're doing. Okay, and that wood's looking good. Now later we're going to come back and age this wood, but we're just trying to get a good wood base to start with. And then if you don't like something about it, once we're going to go and put this on the Sketchfab, and then we can really look at it in there. You can put it in Max. You can put it on there too and look at it. I have a tendency to just go ahead and bring it into Sketchfab because there's some tools in Sketchfab that if there's something that you don't like, it can be a little confusing sometimes because you're like, okay, which part is that? And there's a little utility inside of Sketchfab which makes it easy to find what's what. Okay. So there's my base wood. I might want to take that out there. And I already know this is going to be wrong because this is this piece on the top and it's running the wrong way. But I'm going to leave it that way just so you can see what the issue is when I bring that in that way. Okay, let's go export this and let's bring it into Sketchfab. So all I'm going to do here is turn your wireframe off. Oh, looks like I need to move it down a little bit here. So unlock that and just pull it down a bit. Okay, there we go. I'll make sure to lock that back. Okay, so let's save. I'm just going to save this out. Okay, by the way, Sketchfab uses PNGs. So anything that we save as anything else and bring in, it converts it to a PNG. So I would just say go ahead and just quick export as a PNG. And then we'll just call this create wood base. And let's go over and bring this into Sketchfab. I'm going to pause it while I get Sketchfab up. Okay, so here I've got my Sketchfab up. And got my low poly model in here. So now I'm ready to come in here on my base color, and we're going to load a texture. And I'm going to import the texture. And now I've got my wood texture on. Move my light source around. And then you can kind of check out your texture. Okay, I may decide that I want to take that split out right there. Okay. Now I want to show you what I was talking about, a little utility that helps us find that. Okay, so I need to figure out, okay, where is that at? So what I can do here is I go to my texture inspector and then go to 2D, 3D. And then when I pick base color here, my base color is going to show up here. Now it's hard to tell what's going on because we don't have the wireframe. So if you go over here and click on your wireframe up here and make it like white, then you see your materials show up over here. Okay. See this little red dot? So I can hover over here and then it's showing up over there. And I know, okay, that's the part I need to fix right there. So now I can go back to Photoshop. And I know that there's the piece I need to fix right there. So I need to fix that. And then I can export that and bring that back in. So that's one of the advantages of, coming in here, because then I can figure out where things are and go, okay, I don't like this split or whatever it is. And then this can tell me, where it is to go back and do your editing. Okay. All right. So, this is one thing I would think is a little weird though, is that since I had that texture inspector on and I had the wireframe on, when I come out of it, it's going to leave that wireframe on. So you got to make sure that you turn that off. So when you're closing the inspector, that's not on it. Okay, so that's the first stage in getting your texture set up, your construction file. By the way, just so that you're aware, sometimes I see people has their object is off center, and when you rotate, it's rotating off center, and it's doing some kind of weird stuff. If you just double click in the background, then it'll recenter your model up so that it rotates around. You can also do that by hitting the space bar. Will do that too. It'll recenter your model so that you're rotating around your model. Okay, that's the first stage of getting our wood on there. Now we're going to come back and we're going to age the wood. We're going to do some other things. We're going to get a normal map and such on it. But that's the first stage of getting your texture map set up, ready to go. Okay. Then in Photoshop, we want to make sure we just kind of label things. So I've been doing some experimenting in here. So I need to kind of come in here and clean this up. Okay. So I always want the wireframe up at the top. I'm going to lock it. And then these are all parts of where I was creating the base color, which is my wood. So I'm going to put all those in a folder. What's this? Okay, so that's a separate one I was working on. So this is our base color. Okay, and I'm going to drop this in there too. And at this time, I'm not going to worry about going in here and naming all this right yet. But I want to organize this. Okay, and then I'm going to save this out. So if this crashes or something, we get it. So we're going to go File, save as, and you can save this as a Photoshop file or a TIFF file. I have a tendency to use TIFF files, and the reason I use TIFF files, a TIFF file and a Photoshop file are basically the same thing, but the difference is how Windows deals with it, because Windows understands a TIFF, and when you're looking in a folder, it'll have a picture. Yeah, so I'll be able to see the wood and stuff, see what this is. Whereas if I save it as a Photoshop file, it doesn't understand that, so it just shows an icon without any graphic to it. So I have a tendency to do this, and so I'm going to call this my create construction file. And then I know this is the file that I'm using to construct all my textures. Just leave this, the defaults. And there you go. All right. Hopefully that helped you. Thank you very much.